There could well be more, but at least 8 of the 43 presidents are our cousins. None of the 18th century ones, and out of all of them from the 19th century, we've only got 1. But of the 20th century ones, we have 5. And in the 21st century, we're rocking 100%. The 2012 election is still a ways off, but if it winds up being Cousin Barry versus Cousin Sarah or Cousin Mitt, our 100% of the presidents this millennium streak will remain intact. Our first presidential cousin was Hiram Ulysses Grant. Whether it was a mistake on the part of the senator who wrote his recommendation letter, or just that he didn't want to enter West Point with the initials HUG, posterity remembers him as Ulysses S. Grant. His great-great-great-great-granddaddy was Reverend John Lothrop, who, from his second wife, is our great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, give or take a few greats, depending on your generation. That makes Cousin Hiram my 5th cousin, 7 times removed. Cousin Hiram was a Civil War hero, notorious drunk, participated in and encouraged all that crazy Reconstruction corruption, and was beloved. Absolutely beloved. Nowadays, he's just a dude on a $50 bill. But in the decades after his presidency, he was ranked with Washington and Lincoln as the greatest ever. Suppose I should have focused more on his comedic drunkenness and corruption, but going from revered to generic is even more interesting. Plus, the fact that the opinions of historians matter more than do those of contemporaries should be a refreshing thought to some of the other presidential cousins, who need future historians to view him slightly more favorably than did their constituents. Calvin Coolidge was the next president from our family. His great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents were our great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, give or take a few greats, depending on your generation. That makes Cousin Cal my 10th cousin, 4 times removed. Cousin Cal let the roaring 20s roar. He didn't do anything to stop the ridiculous that led to the Great Depression, but during his presidency, he was extremely popular. The previous president, Warren G. Harding, had one of the most scandal-ridden terms ever, so folks just wanted a quiet president. And Cousin Cal was the quietest of them all, known for his active inactivity and hardly saying anything. This one time at a White House dinner, some lady sitting next to him told him that she had bet she could get at least 3 words of conversation out of him. Cousin Cal turned to her and said, "You lose." Oh, Cousin Cal. Even when he did speak, it was not eloquent and poetic. Dude's most famous quote is, "After all, the chief business of the American people is business." Yeah, pretty profound. Later in that same speech, he dropped another doozy. "The chief ideal of the American people is idealism." Next up is Cousin Frank. He was the only man elected president 4 times, so it's only appropriate that we're related to him 4 ways. His great-great-great-great-great-grandparents were our great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, give or take a few greats, depending on your generation. That makes Cousin Frank my 6th cousin, 7 times removed. Also, his great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents were our great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, give or take a few greats, depending on your generation. That also makes Cousin Frank my 7th cousin, 5 times removed. In addition to that, his great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents were our great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, give or take a few greats, depending on your generation. This makes Cousin Frank my 7th cousin, 7 times removed. Finally, and this one is a bit more complicated due to a little inbreeding on our side of the family, we're related to Cousin Frank through both Reverend John Lothrop's first and second wives. See how one of Reverend John Lothrop's granddaughters married one of his great-grandsons? That means that Reverend John Lothrop, who is Cousin Frank's great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandaddy, is both our great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather and our great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, give or take a few greats, depending on your generation. This makes Cousin Frank both my 9th cousin 3 times removed and my 9th cousin 4 times removed. We actually have the same thing going on with Cousin Hiram, but I didn't feel the need to confuse anyone by complicating things. Figured that with Cousin Frank, things are sufficiently complicated already that it wouldn't really be all that distracting. Up next is Cousin Dick. His great. You know, we're just distant cousins, okay? Cousin Dick was the only guy ever elected vice president and president twice. Being the only twice elected VP and prez is pretty cool. He ended the Vietnam War, made friends with China, did détente and anti-ballistic things with the Soviet Union, eliminated the gold standard, put guys on the moon, desegregated schools, lowered the voting age to 18, hated hippies, and signed Title IX. Easily one of the 20th century's best presidents. He was also one of the 20th century's worst presidents. Watergate and a cover-up and 18 and a half minutes of missing tape and all that. And he was awkward and always throwing up V signs like a big dork. And that picture of him in the White House with Elvis is the most ridiculously awesome photograph in American history. Cousin Jerry was born Leslie King Jr., but his mama left Leslie King when he was a baby and remarried Gerald Ford. So he went from Leslie King Jr. to Gerald Ford Jr. Cousin Jerry and I are 11th cousins twice removed.
Gerald and Betty Ford arrived in Austria. Gerald and Betty Ford arrived in Austria. Gerald and Betty Ford arrived in Austria.
Cousin George and I are related several ways, but I'll get to that later. His greatest moment was when he promised that he wouldn't raise taxes.
Read my lips.
Not long thereafter, he raised taxes. Therein lies the genius of Cousin George. Listen again.
Read my lips.
Did you hear that?
Read my lips.
Genius! The man doesn't have lips. He didn't break any promises because the body part in question is non-existent. It'd be like if he said, "I swear on my prehensile tail," or "by my antlers." He might as well have said, "May the wings fall from my body if this is a lie." Well done, Cousin George. He was also quite vocal and militant about his hatred of broccoli, and one time he puked on the Prime Minister of Japan. His son, Cousin W., was a president too. Through Samuel Hinckley and Sarah Sewell, me and George are 10th cousins twice removed. Of course, me and W have the same relationship, just with an additional generation separating us, making us 11th cousins once removed. Through John Howland and Elizabeth Tilley, me and George are also 12th cousins. Me and Dub, being an extra generation apart, are 12th cousins once removed. Then we got that Reverend John Lothrop and both his wives thing happening again. Me and George are 10th cousins twice removed and 11th cousins once removed. And then me and Dub are 11th cousins once removed and 12th cousins. With Cousin Barry, it's a lot simpler. We're just 11th cousins once removed is all. Cousin Barry has only been president for a little while now and hasn't really done anything noteworthy yet, other than win a Nobel Peace Prize for being the world's worst dancer.
Never gonna give you up. Never gonna let you down. Never gonna run around and desert you. Never gonna make you cry. Never gonna say goodbye. Never gonna tell like lie and hurt you.